bit of a special show, I guess, or maybe not special, but I would just say different show. So no chapter recap, starting it up this time. It's just going to go straight into what I believe is my best solve yet. That's good progress. I'll probably say that a few more times because it means that's a natural progression. It means I think at least I'm getting better at understanding and linking things and using clues and making full use of everything available. This is something that I've been sitting on for the past, I'll say 3 or 4 days, and I was really close to pulling the trigger on this one. But after 3 days of looking at it and trying to, again, disprove or tell myself why this couldn't be it, I found out more reasons why it couldn't than it could, basically. And so because I'm pretty limited to, I can probably only go out once or twice. This one I'm shelving it and I'm gonna share it and continue to build on it. What's up, King Catcher? Hey, number one, got a little crown there. All right, so if you don't know, we're going over a recent solve I put together for Beyond the Map's Edge. And if you're just joining and you're asking, well, why are you sharing a solve if you believe it's the one? I don't believe it's the one. I believe how I got here is probably the best way and what I'm going to use going forward. And I'll probably keep one or two things back that I think might still come into play. Mr. Underhill, Michael, how you guys doing? Welcome, welcome. One clue short of a treasure. Hey, that's like me. I'm like 4 clues short of a treasure. Hey, how you guys doing? All right, so let's just go ahead and dive into it, all right? Starting out, it's nothing really profound. I believe he starts out with a question that he wants us to consider throughout the whole. This one's a New Mexico one, Cypher. This one's a New Mexico one, so you're still safe with that with Arizona. He starts out with a question I believe he wants us all to answer, right? So can you find what lives in time flowing through each measured rhyme? And for me, how I interpret that is I'm looking for memories connected to water throughout the book, and a few appear in the doc. And that's going to be the question I answer for each stanza. Now, that part's not unique. Hey, Will, Neil, Dragon Lady, how you guys doing? And DW3, welcome, welcome. So that part's not new. That part's not unique. Almost everybody has something related to water. A lot of people have memories. So it's just, and many people have them put together, right? So that part's not new. So I'm not going to spend too long on that, right? But basically, I'm looking for memories connected to water. So the next part, wisdom waits in shadowed sight, for those who read these words just right. This one, I'm not really confident that I have everything figured out for. If anything, I'm on the limping along path, right? Justin says he's left stuff, clues for those who to help us limp along. I'm probably a limp along guy, not really the guy who's nailing each one, right? So, wisdom waits in shadowed sight, for those who read these words just right. I'm going to use opposites, antonyms, synonyms, and alternate word definitions as for each of the words. I'm not going to do anagrams because in my mind, that's kind of playing along the simple cipher line. And he said this, there's only one and it's not in the poem. So in my mind, that's why I'm not going down that route. But I think it's fair play to use any possible definition, however remote or obscure of a word that's in the poem. All right, Dinosaur Canoe, what's up, man? So moving along, right? As hope surges clear and bright, walk near water's silent flight. For the most part, I will try to read each sentence in its entirety. So if you notice there's a bright, after bright, there's a comma. So I will try to use each sentence. There's, I think, once or twice where I don't, and I'll explain that. But for this one, hope, if you look in the ebook, which I finally broke down and bought the ebook, right? That's how confident I was that I was onto something. I'm like, you know what? I need to stop relying on others and asking them, hey, can you search this? Can you search that? I'm going to buy the ebook myself. So as of 2 days ago, I'm an official proud owner of the audiobook, the ebook, the hard copy, right? I don't know if there's anything else out there, but I've got all 3 of those. So if you search hope in the ebook, you will get, off my, I don't know, maybe like 8 or 9 hits, but 4 are directly related to fishing, fishing in the water, right? I think all 4, or all three directly related to fishing are in rivers. And then there's a couple more water ties into hope, right? So for me, I'm interpreting that hope is fish, right? So as hope surges, as fish surge, clear and bright, walk near water, silent flight. And so for me, I'd been using Fitzwater. This was an early on thought. Hey, I don't know if I can pronounce that name. Utkarsh Saraz, what's up, man? I'll give it my best shot. Hey, you're now the new number 1. Welcome. I've been using the Grandpa's Flight, his migration, right? Flight, migration. down from Montana down south. And I discussed this in Discord the other day. Oh, so you're the guy who says that every day. All right, what's up, man? So yeah, I brought this up in the Discord. If you put in, you can try this now, right? You can try putting in your Google, Samsung, whatever app you use. Do a directions from Dillon, Montana. That's where he says he started. He says he lived outside of Dillon, Montana to Tucson, right? Put in that domain expansion. What is a Jujutsu Kaisen fan here? What's up? Hey, how you doing, Trues? You put that in. Most of the time, the highways it's going to tell you is the 15. It's almost directly south, right? It's a straight north-south run. It brings you down through Idaho and Utah. You don't really go past. You don't really go across Montana and down Wyoming. You go pretty much straight down, right? And so if you're taking that story, right, the story of his grandfather, right, Grandpa Fitzwater, coming down south. And he talks about how, okay, he's on the southbound side of the highway, because why would you be on the north side? And that his tire from his trailer on this Jeep Wagoneer rolls off. You're all familiar with the story, right? It goes into the water. There's only one small spot along that highway where that's possible, because for the most part, well, one, the Snake River is only a short time where it intersects Highway 15. And the amount of time that the Snake River is on the southbound side, because for the most part, it goes down the northbound side, right? So it's a very... it's a really short time period. And while yes, you could technically see, I mean, maybe in the 70s or 80s, it wasn't as built up. You could see a ditch that it would run into. If that's the area that he's pointing us to, there's not really a good hole near there, right? And for the most part, I try to use the capital one, right? Yeah, King Catcher. Yeah, this is it, man. This is it. This is strap in, because it's gonna get fun. So I like to use Jackson Hole for this one, because I finally decided to stop fighting everybody, because everyone's saying, hey, well, the documentary is clearly saying that the documentary is a lot of Wyoming. It's a lot of Wyoming shots. It's a lot of Wyoming talk. All right, so the documentary is pointing to starting us in Wyoming. While I might not necessarily agree that we're starting at 9 Mile Hole, I'm actually using Wyoming for the start. So it doesn't really fit for me for his grandfather's flight and grandfather's trip. And the reason why, you could say, okay, well, Froggy, why are you tied in the grandfather? I'm tied in the grandfather because I really believe we're supposed to use Benjamin Barker. Do I know him? Do I know Jesus? But I think I know Jesus. Yeah, I think I got a pretty good relationship with him. I was talking with him earlier today. I'll let him know you said what's up. All right. I do think that you're supposed to use one of the four members, right? The grandfather, his grandfather's dad, his brother, or Tucker, for one of the four stanzas, right? I think the first one is the introductory, and then you move down the four. Now, it has been suggested that, well, what if the last stanza is your finale, put everything together? So use one of the four as in the first four stanzas. That would mean that can you find what lives in time applies to a person, whether it's Tucker, whether it's a dad, whether it's, whoever. That's kind of a new thought for me. I haven't really explored that one to its fullest. I might continue with that one later on. Who knows? But for right now, I'm using the last four out of the five. And so for this stanza, if you had kind of a pick which family member it relates to, I'm really picking up the grandfather, right? I mean, he says his domain was Montana and Wyoming to begin with, right? The book is very clear about that introduction about looping in Wyoming. A lot of people think that, okay, yeah, the Beaverhead, yeah, Montana. But for those of you which I have not read the grandfather's book, but for those of you who have read it, there's some Wyoming stories in there too, right? So I think it really fits. The first stanza, put it in the grandpa, put it in Wyoming, all right? And so if we're looking in Wyoming, if you're looking for a hole, it's going to be Jackson Hole, right? And so if you're looking at Jackson Hole, I really think that the story of the tire hitting the grandfather is not meant to be taken like word for word literal, because Justin has that discussion about when people ask, hey, your memory said this, your memory said that. Well, and then Justin answered with, the memory is kind of a living thing. What do you say? My summers were always longer. My mom's food was the best. I had more fun at this. My embarrassing moments were the worst. So, right. So taking all that into account, right? Those are words from the author itself. We're going to use that story of the grandfather traveling down and getting hit by the tire and falling into the Snake River. We're going to apply that to look for the Snake River past Jackson Hole. And now you have an option, because Jackson Hole, the Snake River will go kind of north or like southwest, I guess, from there. And I'm using north because when you're going north, it really ties in closely, almost intertwined, almost like the snakes, which Justin said is his favorite chapter, which I brought this up last night. And that's in Emma and Jam's. If you haven't watched that podcast, you're doing yourself a disservice by not watching it. So watch that podcast. It's Emma and Jam's interview with Justin. They ask him, what's your favorite story in the book? And he says, he thinks about it and says, the postal pilgrimage, right? Which is very interesting because one of the main characters besides Justin is his grandfather on his, the grandfather on his father's side, right? Grandpa Posey, which is not one of the four members. So you would think if you're going to pick a favorite story, it'd probably involve one of the four that people that you've dedicated to, that you've said it's your 4 points on your compass, right? You would think. Unless he's trying to give us a hint, right? And I don't think he's like has something against hints because he gave us the first actionable clue. That's a big hint. I mean, he's given us all these parameters, right? He's given us new ones, under 11,000 feet, right? He's given us a lot. The docu is about fenced treasure, so Wyoming is inherently important. Steve's trend, good. See, so I'm not completely off the rails here. It always boosts my confidence when somebody says that, hey, I agree with you. All right, so for all those myriads of reasons, the second stanza, we're looking in Wyoming, we're looking past Jackson Hole, and we're going northbound, right? I'm thinking we're tying in the Snake River because I think by him mentioning one grandpa directly in the book and the other grandpa in an interview, that's kind of both grandfathers. That's kind of that tied to the Snake River. So now here's the problem, right? I wait for you to cast your pole. So okay, if we know it's a Snake River, we know it's a grandpa, we know it's around the bend past the hole, we know which hole. Now we're all down to the last part, right? I wait for you to cast your pole. So what does that mean? Now on a base, a lot of people say, well, a pole is not a rod in fly fishing. So the way I discount that is if you look at pole, if you literally just type in pole, and if you have an ebook, sorry if you don't have an ebook, but if you have an ebook, type in pole. A lot of the times he's saying pole, he's referencing a rod. So to me, that automatically clarifies that up. Like, you can use pole and rod the same. Don't jump my case. It's Justin, right? It's his book. He's the one that did it. It's not me saying it, right? So that's really easy for you to do on your own. I'm not going to go into all the details about that one. But so a lot of people have that as that's fishing, right? That's catch your pole. To me, I've used that before, but it's very surface level. And I really think that because I've had to do at least 1 or 2 layers for each and every line, having the fourth one be surface level, well, that would throw out AI, right? That would throw off anybody who's looking for a pattern, right? Because if the first line, you have to go down 3 levels. If the second line, you have to go down 1 level. And if the third line, you interpret surface level. That's a good way to throw off anybody trying to come up with a pattern, right? So I'm not angry at people that use it as you're looking for a fishing spot, right? But for me, I already have the hole, so I don't need to look for another fishing hole. That'd be 2 holes, right? So I'm gonna interpret that line a little bit differently. I'm gonna use the I'm gonna try to read the words just right. So I'm gonna look for I wait. I'm gonna look for a spot that you can wait. That's safe to wait. I'm gonna look for cast. I looked at an anonym for that. So instead of cast something, I'm gonna take, right? So you cast. Everyone's thinking about cast. Well, let's think about take. So we're gonna take, and I'm gonna look at pull, right? So pull. Because of the lines where he references his car, the Porsche in the background of the dock, right? Porsche racing, fast little car. He talks about his love of street racing, right? Running from the cops and all that with his buddies. That's in the one of his early college chapters with his cherry red silica, right? So I'm going to look at pole as the first position, right? If you're in the pole position on a race, you're the first position. And I'm not going to go into details of all that, but you can do that on your own. So now we have I wait safely in a place that's safe to wait for you to take your first position, right? So briefly, that got me to J.P. Cunningham, which is one of the early settlers in Big Hole, right? Really big player in that in history in that area. He's a really fascinating read if you haven't looked him up, J.P. Cunningham. But that's a man-made structure, like literally the man made it himself, right? So we throw that one out. I looked at there's 2 lookouts, and I really love lookout because in every picture of the grandfather, what's he holding, right? He's got binoculars, right? And then when I interviewed Justin and asked about his grandfather, I was hoping for more of like a military, because that's more my interest, more military story. And he told a story about like him and the binoculars, right? So that's him trying to be helpful and bring it up, binoculars, right? So there's 2 really nice lookout spots, right? You've got a Glacier View turnout, which is a nice lookout spot just past the hole, right? Past the bend, past the hole. and it looks out over the Tetons, and it's a beautiful shot. You can look up images online. It's beautiful. And then a little bit past that, you have a Snake River lookout, which is, again, another beautiful shot. You're looking northwest off the, and there's nothing but a flat prairie, I guess, and then you see the Tetons above, and it's just beautiful. Like, the pictures I'm looking at are blown away. Like anybody, your grandma with an iPhone can take just a masterful shot of that. And there's little placards, information monuments, I guess, at each one. And the history there is amazing. It talks about, what's his name? Adam Ainsley, right? Who the government hired to go out and photograph this spot. And I'm not going to go into a history lesson, but it's really fascinating. So to summarize this, what I got from my second stanza is Snake River Lookout, right? That's what I'm leaning to. If you want, you can use Glacier View Turnout, but that's harder to apply later on, okay? So I said all that to say all that. Snake River Lookout is the answer. If we want to do a recap and we'll look for, okay, Froggy, what in the doc points you that? Okay, well, here's what I have in the doc. So in the Netflix documentary, we have Wyoming, so we're looking at Wyoming to start. In the Netflix doc, we have him calling out specifically the gimbal. And for a person who, when he chooses to introduce the hunt, right, he could have had it professionally set up. He's kind of just, it looks like he pulled off the side of a road and set up a little tripod, and took that picture, right? I mean, that's what it looks like when he announces the hunt. And he even jokes about it, right? I forget the exact words, but he makes a joke in one of the interviews about, my poorly shot video, right? That's Snake River Lookout. All that says to me is Snake River Lookout, but it could be biased. But I'm sharing that with you guys. What did I miss in the chat? Do you think the double arcs are the ones on Fender's Rock? No, I do not, Felicia. Will Neal, Serendipity. All right, got the glasses. All right, so moving on. We've got Grandpa locked down. We got Wyoming. That's our starting spot. Now, Snake River Lookout. Are we walking from that spot to the next spot? No, I don't. I think we have Snake River Lookout. I don't think you need to go to Snake River Lookout. I just think you needed to find it on a map, right? So that's we're kind of restarting, refreshing. All right. So in Ursa East, all right, his realm awaits. This I think is very very intentionally worded, because I think the poem gets progressively harder as you move on, and I think that's intentional. And I'll explain that for a lot of different reasons. So if you thought the second stanza was a little bit tricky, well, it's going to be rough to follow me here. But everyone thinks that, well, not everyone, a lot of people think in Ursa East, his realm awaits applies to the Grandpa. I think that's intentional, right? I think that he wants us to connect people with stanzas, and I think this was kind of not a red herring, not maybe some obfuscation, but just a way to fall into the wrong rabbit hole, right? Lewis Carroll, rabbit holes, let's try to avoid them. We need to chase the right rabbit. Not always the white rabbit, but the right rabbit, or the right white rabbit. Anyways, so I have Brandon, all right, here's why. California is only mentioned twice in the ebook, in the whole book, right? And so one of them is talking about, I guess you might even relate to the dad's side of the family, talking about the Poseys or people who got lost on their way to California or something, right? The other one is when Justin is living in Seattle and it's like Thanksgiving time, and he mentions his brother coming up from California, all right? So is that too obvious? I mean, he mentions the grandfather worked and lived and, roamed Wyoming and Montana flat out. So is it too obvious to say that, okay, his brother is coming up from California? It might be, but I'm using Brandon as California, all right? And we'll go into a little bit more. So his realm, this one took me a little while, and I tried, so the big things in the book that I'm picking up on are right here, right? His love of treasure, right? Early start on the conquistadors. So I'm like, okay, the conquistador conquest, there's got to be something involved with ancient, or not ancient, but 15, 1600s Spanish history has got to play into it somehow, right? It didn't play in stanza 1. It didn't play in stanza 2. Is it going to play in stanza 3? Well, if you want to look at the word realm, I mean, they had the Spanish had a pretty vibrant and strong monarchy for a long time, right? Okay, maybe we can make that fit. If I look down to stanzas 4 and 5, Can I fit the Spanish into 4? Okay, granite, double arc, secrets. They had some secrets. Swift, sacred. Okay, they're pretty religious, right? Catholicism. And I don't really fit it in the 5th one. So stanza 3 looks to me like a good fit to put in something conquistador related, right? So let's go ahead and use realm. We're going to use, I used a lot of different conquistadors. I went down a whole rabbit hole of early Spanish explorers who we used Juan Bautista, we used Coronado, right? So we did a lot of them. And then I just decided to stop using conquistadors and just go to the man himself, right? So we're looking at Ferdinand II of Aragon, right? Very interesting to read. I'm personally very interested in Spanish history, especially during this time frame. So it's a good read to look into it. But that's whose realm we're going to use, because him and his wife, Isabella, they sponsored, and I know this is maybe a little bit touchy topic. We'll try to touch it delicately, right? They sponsored Columbus. All right, you might say to me, well, Columbus didn't discover the Americas, the Vikings did. Okay. Or you might say Columbus only discovered the Caribbean. He didn't really discover America, right? So, hey, this is just what I had for it. All right, don't bite me. What am I missing? I mentioned those sounds last night in the wind, caught my attention. Yeah, dinosaur canoe. Yeah. So, dinosaur canoe did bring up those exact tunnels that we brought in. I don't know if you missed it earlier, dinosaur. I was saying that if you follow the route in the story logically and most efficiently, it doesn't take you to Wyoming. But if you listen to what he says and tie it in emotionally with his memories, right? Because that's what we're looking for, his memories. Then it brings you to Wyoming. And because of those inconsistencies, that's why I believe that we need to be in Wyoming. So yeah, it's kind of like both things. And it shouldn't be in credits. Yeah, and so yeah, I agree. Q Procol. Oh, I don't know Latin, man. I might need a translator. Love that song growing up. All right, so we're looking at Ferdinand, right? His realm is going to be the Americas, right? We're gonna give him credit because the Spanish at this time, or how about this? His realm will be everything below the 42nd parallel in North America, right, on the west side. So that's what we'll look at. All right, so that's what we're looking at. And in Ursa East, I used Celestial for a while. I used Little Bear. I used Alaska. For me, I'm going to use in Ursa East as because Ursa is not capitalized, right? And in the book, he uses Ursine as a bear, right? So that he's just saying bear, right? So Ursa, bear, if you didn't already know what Ursa meant, right? So, and because it's lowercase, let's go little. So, no, sorry, I don't use that. We're just going to use in bear. In Bear East, so we're going to look at California, basically. So it's another California. I'm looking for layers. I'm looking for repetition that's drawing you into it, right? So Brandon in Ursa East, right? So the east side of California, which I think is also intentional because most people label California as north and south. Not too many people say East and West California. You just don't say that, right? You say north or south, Northern California or Southern California, right? So again, another layer of obfuscation. So in Ursa East, the lower east part of California, right? We're looking at King Ferdinand's realm, and again, we're using the book clues. California, his bride stands guard at ancient gates. So whose bride? We're not going to get personal with the family, so we're not using Brandon's bride. And Justin's kind of ruled out the bride's not living. So we're going to look for his bride, Isabella, right? Isabella, Queen of Spain, who also financed Columbus, right? There's a couple statues of her in some nice California towns. But we're not going to use her as a person, right? Because everything's natural, created. So we're going to look at Isabella Peak. And this part just blew my mind for a second. Return her face. A lot of people are thinking mirrors. We're looking at Cassiopeia with the mirror. We're looking at Andromeda. We're looking at reflections. So Isabella Peak is reflected perfectly most days, most of the time in Isabella Lake. How about that, right? So you look at Isabella Lake, you can see Isabella Peak. It's a perfect reflection. Her face is returned in there, right? Isabella, she's a bride, right? She's the bride of Ferdinand. Their wedding is interesting if you want to look that up. And California is his realm, right? Because everything is done claiming it in the name of the king, Ferdinand, right? So, okay, so her foot of 3 at 20 degree. This is where, remember I said earlier that I use most lines in pairs, alliteration reference. I use most sentences as whole sentences, right? So for this one is where I stop. Her foot of 3 at 20 degree. So I used the line before that. In Ursa East, his realm awaits. His bride stands guard at ancient gates. That's Isabella Peak, reflected in Isabella Lake. But her foot of 3 at 20 degree. Because degree and place don't rhyme, I'm not going to use those together. And a lot of people have been on that. A lot of people are like, hey, these don't rhyme, right? So we're not going to use that sentence as a whole. We're going to take her foot of 3 at 20 degree, and we're going to put that aside and save that for later, all right? Return her face to find the place. That sentence that fits really well as a whole nice sentence. So we don't even need that part before. And that's where you get the whole mirror reflected. All right, so what do we have from the doc and what do we have from the book? Because remember, it's nice to sit here and talk theories, but you need stuff from the doc and you need stuff from the book to help make your case, right? So the book, Conquistador Conquest, we talk about the early conquistadors. Who sent all the conquistadors? Well, they went for the three motives, right? For God, for glory, and for gold, right? And so they were all sent. They were all on missions from the king, right? All right. So that's the Conquistador Conquest. We have the lake. Remember, we have to answer the first question. Memories that live along the water, memories that live near water, right? And so the first one we talked about memories that live near water with the river. Now we're looking at lakes. For each one, I look at a different water method, water type, rivers, lakes, and hold on for the next one, right? So now we're looking at lakes. There's plenty of stories in the lakes. Heron Lake, right? Yeah, you can just look in the book for memories of lakes, but the point thing is lakes. All right. Chat, what did I miss in the chat? Conquistador song. It's on my Facebook post about 2 hours ago. California bearing a flag would be west though. Well, because it's not his realm. And I do have it's easy. So Charles Chapman, yeah, Quest for El Dorado, yeah. Well, Quest for Cibola is what we're actually doing for, all right? All right, so now the last part, we're trying to find the place. All right, Isabella Lake. All right, so the first one we have Snake River Lookout. Now we have Isabella Lake. All right, see if you're following me here. And to the side we have her foot of 3 at 20 degree. So so far we've answered everything. We've used the dock, the time. All right, the time. I guess I can talk about this now. So her foot of 3 at 20 degree is a dock clue from the time that's moving around clocks. All right, and this is pretty fun. We went down this rabbit hole the other day. There's only two times on a clock within a 24-hour period where the minute and the hour hand make a 20-degree angle. That doesn't use seconds. Okay, so if you use seconds, I think it's 44. I think there's 44 times if you want to bring in seconds. But there's only 2 times that fit. And it's 320 and 880. Ancient Gates, Isabella Peak at Isabella Lake is right in front of, guess, Isabella Dam. So Ancient Gates is a dam there. If you want to get a little bit esoteric, the river is it the Kern River that goes up and down there? It was a portal, right? So gates, portals. If you want to get even more esoteric, there's the Spanish had some missions along the way, so fortresses. So I mean, but I just use because Isabella is the name we've all gone for. I've gone Isabella Lake, Isabella Peak, Isabella Dam. They're all right there together. And again, the pictures on Google are amazing, where you can see the exact reflection of the peak in the lake. All right. Yeah. So the clock times is there's only 2 times, 320 and 840, that they make a 20-degree angle. Okay. Now we go on the next one, and this is where again, I believe they're getting harder and harder to make the connections as the poem goes on. All right. So double arcs on granite bold. This one, we're like, man, I had to dig so hard to get Isabella and Ferdinand. I had to dig so hard to figure out the first stanza. Man, I'm gonna have to dig super hard for this next one. Aha, he throws you off in the beginning. Because double arcs on granite bold, what haven't we used? We haven't used a lot of the map recently, right? So we have to use the map, because the map, Justin says, you had to use the map. So we only have 2 stanzas left to use it. How about we use it right now? Double arcs on granite bold. Look at the map. Do you see 2 arcs anywhere? All right, okay, yeah, I can see words written in arcs, right? But words aren't made of granite. But if you look in Alaska, right, everyone's like, what's going on with Alaska? You can see 2 arcs right there reflected in each other, a shadow of each other, shadowed site, right? And they're 2 arcs on granite bold. So it's the Brooks Range and the Alaskan Range, right? The Alaska Mountain Range. And let me get this right. The Brooks Range, only the middle part is primarily granite, exposed granite. It's the Allegetch Range, which is really beautiful. You have to look up photos of that. It looks like something out of like Lord of the Rings or a Game of Thrones. It's just incredibly jagged granite, solid, massive peaks, right? Arranged in a nice arch. But the Alaska Range down south is majority granite, and a lot of it's exposed granite. So those are two massive arcs right there that are in plain sight in front of your face, and they're in Alaska that he's drawn to, all right? So we're not overthinking that one, because if you do, then this stanza falls apart. All right, where secrets of the past still hold. All right, so this one I interpreted a couple different ways. Still, we hold something, you hold it in the middle. So in between those two ranges are held Yukon River, right? So spoiler alert, Yukon River is going to be the answer to this stanza, all right? Because we've used Snake River Lookout, which looks at glaciers, right? Or it looks at a river. We've used Isabella Lake, and now we're going to use the Yukon River again, because we're also going to use mountains, because the book chapter Mountain Memory. One of my big ties into this is I forgot to say it. This is Tucker. This is Tucker right here. And why is this Tucker? Because one, in the dock, right, we got to use a dock clue. Or very early on, when he gets up to start the whole thing and spill his secret, what do you see right behind him? You see Tucker on the banks of a river, right? And then he goes up, and Tucker's covered most of the time. If you look at, if you do a Google search and look at Yukon, Alaska is not found in the book, by the way, which I think is very intentional, because he says Wyoming in the beginning and directly ties it to the grandpa. He says California, directly ties it to Tucker. Directly ties it to Brandon. He does not say Alaska. He does say Yukon, right? And he talks about Tucker, looks like digging for gold in the Yukon or something. You can search Yukon. It appears once in the book, and it's directly related to Tucker. All right. So there's some more confirmation for you that we've used in the book, and we've used the dock to tie in Tucker to a river, and we've tied it to Yukon River. So again, secrets of the past. You can look this up. Alaska is full of secrets because it's so remote. There was a whole story. I think it was ConocoPhillips. There was a whole story of some explorer exploring the northern, near the Arctic Circle, and discovered a dinosaur, but he couldn't bring it back with him, and nobody believed him forever. And it went for like decades before anybody else was even in that area to go. And ConocoPhillips was, doing what they do best, exploiting the earth for natural resources. And they happened to were blasting a road and came across where he said he was. And they're like, oh yeah, totally dinosaurs here. Yep. And they just kept on blowing up the road. So he did get, he got verified there towards the end. But because of the harshness of the environment, because of the very limited time they had to explore with the weather, there's tons of secrets up north. All right. Let's see. We're beyond Time's swift race. If you look at time, and especially the movement of time, we talk about the three colors in Gracie's Grail. Talk about how he very clearly describes the march of civilization in that chapter as relating to time progressing. And where else has kind of civilization been slow to catch up? Right, Alaska, man. That's the last great frontier is what they call it, don't they? All right, and it's full of wonder, and sacred space is probably maybe a little bit weak, unless you take what Justin says about his cathedrals are the mountains and the rivers and stuff, and Justin directly states, but I don't think I'm not using those states, right? So if his cathedral is in nature, all right, where's the most untamed nature? Where's nature the most naturist, right? We're going to look at Alaska, which would mean that'd be the best cathedral, which would be the most sacred, right? Let's see. You can see why you're dumping us all, dude, all over the place. Simplify, trying to help. I can't help everyone, King Catcher. Sorry, man. JP most likely parked on level ground. Did he go uphill or downhill first? Those are all fairly level ground. Alaska's only dotted lines border on the map. Double arcs and granite could be Grand Tetons. Yeah. So all those are pretty good. I lived in Alaska, just in the data station there, Fort Richmond, beautiful state. I agree, Charles Chapman. I've been to every state but 4, and Alaska is one I haven't been to. I haven't been to Montana either, so I joke around and saying I'm anti-Montana, but in reality, I would love to visit the state, because then then that would only be 3 states I haven't been to. All right, so what have we got? All right, we've done all this talking. We've got 3 locations, 3 places. We've got Snake River Lookout, we've got Isabella Lake, and we've got the Yukon River. What are we doing? We drawing something? Are we connecting the dots? No, I've moved on from drawing things mainly because now that I'm using Alaska, Alaska moves around depending on how you're viewing this map. So I don't think we can draw something because yeah. In case you missed it, Charles, we're not going to Alaska. Do not. This will be in the title. Do not go to Alaska. I'm not saying go to Alaska. I'm saying that he asked you a question, and you have to answer it multiple times. All right. So one of the answers is Yukon River. So now we get to the end. Truth rests not in clever minds. All right, Froggy, you've made all these connections. It sounds like you're trying to be clever. You've twisted us, tangled us all around the states. We're bouncing from state to state, right? So if we can't be clever, if we're not being tangled and twisted, what are we supposed to find? Like a river's steady flow, all right? Which the river steady flow, that's kind of an interesting way to phrase it, because one of the great things I love about rivers is whenever you step in a river, you're never stepping into the same river, right? Never twice again because of the way it flows. It's always different water, if you will, that's going to be flowing past you, all right? And the flow doesn't even stay steady. It depends on the season. It depends on the participation. You can't even say the river steady flows after a dam because that's not even steady. They can do surges. They can manipulate it, right? So for river steady flow, the only thing steady about river and water in general is it's always going to be moving downhill. It's always going to move to the lower elevation. So at the very end, when you find your spot, you're going to be moving downhill. He's going to give you the directions, right? And you're going to move downhill from that spot. What do you seek? You already know. This is the main reason why I go to all these different places and have all these different answers for the different stanzas. If you interpret what you seek, you already know differently, you're probably not going to vibe with 90% of what I'm spitting. Because what I think he wants you to do is figure out that answer to the question 3 different ways, and the 4th way, you're going to use those answers, right? Because if you look at that last stanza, there's not a lot of meat there. It's a lot of theory, right? It's not. There's not a lot of instructions in the 5th stanza. It's not instructional. It's telling you what you already know, right? It's pretty simple. So we're gonna look back, and we're gonna look on. So who do we have? We have the grandpa. We have Brandon. We have Tucker. We have the dad who's left, right? And for the dad, if you look at Justin's relationship with the dad and how he describes them, I mean, he kind of describes him larger than life figure sometimes. And there's a lot of connections to New Mexico, right? What haven't we used from the doc? We haven't used rails at all, right? We've used the Spanish, right? We've used nature. We've used stories. We've used I don't know if you can say using tech in a photograph, right? That's kind of a stretch. But what haven't we used at all? We haven't used railroads at all. We haven't used nothing connecting to rail at all. And while Justin has said that tracks are structures, it's not like he ruled out using rail at all. But, I mean, both his parents, Uncle Hiram, they were all engineers. We have the rail lock in there. So this one I thought was pretty cute, right? If you look at the city Magdalena, all right, and so if you look at the city Magdalena in New Mexico, Magdalena is called the trail's end because the early trail routes ended there, all right? And so it was a transition. It was a transition from cattle driving, because the cattle would drive there, to rail. So it was kind of I don't know, would you say liminal space? All right, they probably got a couple buzzwords out of some people, right? We're transitioning from the end of the trail to rail, right? So Magdalena was known as the trail's end. That's not even a stretch. If you type in Magdalena, New Mexico, hit up the Wikipedia, and it's like the first line on there, the trail's end, which I think is pretty symbolic because this is our trail's end. So that's the city we're going to be looking at. Magdalena, the town Magdalena is in the Magdalena Mountains, right, which is in the Cibola Range, which Cibola, again, that brings us full circle because what was Coronado looking for, right? He was looking for the 7 lost cities of 7 cities of gold, 7 cities of Cibola, right? So it's a nice little bow on this adventure that we've been going on, right? So here's where I'm gonna get a little bit fuzzy. I've been pretty open with all the other stanzas, but this one, even though I don't think it's here, I think it might be close, or I think that some of the steps I'm using in this last stanza can apply. For example, okay, I say you had this place, all right? Hey, good job, you found a city. Okay, yay, we found a city. That's not going to find us the gold because the city's not an exact space. It's not an exact place either, all right? So I'm going to use her foot of 3 at 20 degree. I'm going to use those 2 times, and that's how I'm going to apply moving downhill, lower elevation from the peak that I find eventually, right? Mr. James L. Frazier, are you for America? Trump is goof. Trump is goof or bad? I'll say he's kind of goofy sometimes. I mean, the dude's kind of goofy. Yeah, no politics. I did a rod. Time Swift race. Could be, could be. All right, got it. All right, hope that answers. All right, so yeah, so now you know this was my big thing, and again, this was what I was sitting on for the past couple of days. The area looks pretty good. This is hard to visualize, but I have some pictures that showed some of the areas on his cover. Some of the areas around this area look like this, not with peaks that jagged, but like a valley in between a couple of mountains on one side with a ridge on the other side. And you could say, Froggy, that's everywhere in the West, man. You're always going to have a valley in between mountains because that's how geography works. And most of the time, you're always going to have a river in that valley. That's just how water works. So yeah. And that's why, my only counter to that would be, I don't think this is a massive clue. I think this is just like one more confirmer that, hey, if you find a spot that looks something like this as you're looking for, hey, that could work out. All right. Yeah. And again, so a few things I like about this are I like the, and I'll say what I like and then I'll say what I don't like. A few things that I like about this are explains the distance, right? If you were to ask him, hey, if that was to solve, which I don't think it is, if that was to solve, how many miles is that? Well, geez, man, I don't know. You got to go to the Yukon, which is a massive river. So what point are you going to use? Okay, Snake River, you can use that exact point. Magdalena, that's kind of an image, right? That's a lake reflected mountains. Do you measure the lake? Do you measure the dam? Do you measure the peak? I don't know. That's a rough measurement. Yeah, so it would be really hard to answer how many miles from start to finish is your hunt. But that can apply to a lot of different things. All right, so what I don't like about this, all right? I don't like that I never found the checkpoint. I don't like that I never found a cipher or a technical clue. I don't like that even my exact spot, it's kind of shaky. I like that. I'm pretty happy with the way I solved the other stanzas. Because I'm finding sentences in the book that describe it. I'm finding images in the doc. I'm finding, and I think that's better than what I have had. And I want to hope to continue along that thread. I want to hope that my next video, my next I found it video, will have even more ties in. And there'll be even less people in chat that are like, no, that you're way off. So this is encouraging because if only a few people think I'm way off, they're either you guys are just trolling me, keep it to yourself, wanting me to go down rabbit holes. Because my first couple solves, a lot of people were like, nah, that's way off. So I'm a little bit inspired that at least I'm getting more consensus when I spill out a solve. What do we got here? The book cover is AI generated. Cool. No, gotcha. Justin created the cover. It's not AI. All right. All right, yeah, so that's it. Apologize, went a little bit longer than I thought. I still think New Mexico is a great state. I really like the city of Magdalena. I like how it all fit in that, we found, Isabella. So, a famous queen, a bride, really tied into the founding of America and discovery of it. If you believe mainstream school curriculums. And now we have another lady, Magdalena, right, who, can ties into Mary Magdalene. I don't think the solve is super religious. I don't think you need to go into all that, but I do like the name of the town. So a few things I don't like about it are this is really close to a lot of spots Justin mentioned. I mean, I can definitely see, so Justin says that no one knows the treasure spot that's alive today, right? So I can definitely see an early camping trip with his father and Brandon and him going off. Did you know New Mexico, I said this in Discord, did you know New Mexico established the first dark sky area? Did you know New Mexico established the first wilderness area? Those are two firsts, right, that established in New Mexico, right? I can definitely see him as a kid camping out somewhere in that area, just looking up at the stars in the morning. Another thing I don't like, the place I was looking at, it's not within you have to go 5 miles to get to any good trout fishing. So that's a little bit far. Most people are like, if your solve doesn't end within a mile within trout fishing, you're off. So another thing that I don't like about it, I was because I was up in the mountains because I was like, okay, you know what? It's not out of range that Let's sleep on the mountains. Let's get that good mountain there. Let's get the good view of unobstructed, no atmosphere, less city lights, and we're looking at the stars. You can see the Milky Way. In the morning, wake up, camp, and we'll drive down the river or something. I don't know. Just looking at okay. Do touch. Okay, a lot of arguing over the covers AR or not. Whatever you believe, I guess. All right, Sneaking the Searcher. Yeah, a quick recap is this. We didn't do a chapter recap. This is just me spilling my guts on my latest solve. So, all right, that I think will be it. Thanks for joining. 35 people. Hey, I'll tell you what. Nothing quenches your thirst after talking for a lot, like any beverage out of an Essie's Quest mug. So there you go. That's science right there. It's water. All right. Take care, guys. I will talk to you guys later. Email. So I joke around like this, but kind of like the first treasure hunt is just finding how to contact me. That's kind of like the first little puzzle. Like, I mean, I don't hide from people, but I don't necessarily like put my phone number in the chat. I'm not like that, so I'm kind of in between. I'm not that hard to find though. Believe me, I'm really not. Enjoy the live. Take care, guys. All right, later. Bye.